Hi, Black Cat Recapped here. Today, I'm going to explain a horror thriller movie named Even Lambs Have Teeth. The movie begins with two really close friends, Katie, who is pretty serious, and Sloane, who likes to have fun with lots of people. They are excited about their upcoming trip out of town. They're going to spend a whole month working at a farm called Eco Field Organic Farms so they can make some money to go shopping in New York City. The next morning, Katie's uncle, Jason, who is a police officer, picks them up. They'll be staying at Jason's place along with his girlfriend for a night before heading to the farm. As they make themselves comfortable in the new place, Sloane has an idea. She thinks they should make up pretend names while they're in town. Sloane decides to use the name Heather, and Katie chooses Ripley. The following day, Uncle Jason drives them to a station where they'll catch a bus to the farm. Jason, being the caring cop uncle, advises them to create a secret word in case they find themselves in a risky situation. The arrangement entails that they must include a specific code word at the conclusion of each message. Once the uncle departs, the two individuals are left waiting for the bus. They opt to pass the time at the cafe instead. Their presence quickly attracts the attention of two locals, leading to a situation where they end up sharing a table with these townsfolk. The two women then use the made-up names they created the other night when introducing themselves, while the two men present themselves as brothers named Jed and Lucas. The brothers kindly propose to provide them with a ride to their workplace. Although Katie hesitates at first, she eventually gives in after seeing Sloane's unspoken request. So, they both get into the young men's blue truck. However, things take an unexpected turn. Jed intentionally drives past the farm where Katie and Sloane are employed, leaving the two women feeling confused. Finally, they reach their destination. The two women are greeted by Jed and Lucas' rather suspicious mother, who invites them in for tea before they head to the farm. Once they're indoors, Katie receives a text from her police officer uncle, and using their agreed-upon code words. In the meantime, the two enjoy some pie and indulge in tea, although they probably shouldn't have. Despite the potential risks, they go ahead with it. However, their vision starts to blur, revealing that there were drugs in their drinks. As soon as they sense that something is amiss, the two women bolt in an attempt to escape. Regrettably, Jed and Lucas catch up to them, incapacitating them and carrying them back inside. The following day, Katie and Sloane find themselves in a state of panic, their situation dire as they are chained up in the heart of the woods. Jed approaches them and announces that this is to be their new living arrangement. They are provided with only the most fundamental necessities for survival, including clothing, a bed, and a toilet. In the subsequent scene, Katie and Sloane are now dressed, and Jed's boss, Boris, arrives. He confiscates Katie's phone to investigate whether anyone is aware of their location. During this process, he uncovers that Katie and Sloane had been deceptive about their identities, including the code word used in the text message. Katie and Sloane ultimately feel compelled to admit to Boris that the word apple is their safety code. Just as things seem to be settling down, they start preparing for a makeshift shower, but at that very moment, the town's sheriff arrives with his firearm drawn. It appears that the sheriff is a bad person who supports human trafficking, and he has arrived to rape one of the women. After the bad sheriff does what he wants, Sloane goes to see Katie, who looks very upset, to comfort her. In another part of town, Katie's uncle Jason is getting concerned because the last message he got from her includes the same secret word she used yesterday. Meanwhile, deep in the woods, Jed and Lucas greet another person who we'll now call Scruffy Guy. Then, he chooses Sloane and takes her into the trailer. Not surprisingly, Scruffy Guy is a bit crazy. On the other side, the police uncle finally calls the place where Sloane and Katie work and finds out they didn't go to work yesterday. Convinced that they are in danger, he hurries to search for them. Meanwhile, Sloane and Katie's day is about to become even more difficult because the next person who arrives is even more suspicious than the previous one. The person wearing a pig mask selects Sloane and leads her into the trailer. After he departs, it's now Katie's turn to comfort a frightened Sloane. We aren't certain about what exactly the person in the pig mask did to her, but Sloane seems even more distressed than before. In the next scene, Uncle Jason arrives at the sheriff's office and encounters the town's inappropriate sheriff, whom we previously saw. In this revelation, we discover that the uncle is not just a regular cop, he's an FBI agent. He expresses his worries and becomes convinced that his niece has been abducted. Adding more intrigue to the story, for some unknown reason, the FBI uncle decides to inform the sheriff about his concerns, specifically mentioning that Katie didn't use a new code word in her latest text message. Back in the woods, it's clear that the sheriff has shared the information with the kidnappers that Katie's uncle is an FBI agent, and that Katie deceived them with the safe word. Worried about the FBI getting involved in their illegal activities, their boss Boris orders Jeff to murder both Katie and Sloane and dispose of their bodies. Little do they know, Katie is secretly listening in on their conversation. While all of this is unfolding, the FBI uncle decides to visit the cafe where he had last left Katie and Sloane. He approaches the barista and inquires about what they know. The barista vividly recalls the type of truck that Katie and Sloane departed in. The following day, Katie informs Sloane that the kidnappers intend to murder them, and shortly after, the kidnappers arrive, accompanied by the scruffy guy. Afterward, they leave the scruffy guy behind to keep an eye on them. Katie seizes this moment to charm him, and when she gets sufficiently close, she rips his throat with her bare teeth. The two women then work on getting themselves unchained. Shortly after, the sheriff arrives at the location, likely with the intention to harm them. However, just as he exits his car, Katie and Sloane manage to steal his vehicle. The two women drive back into town and head to a hardware store to get equipped. They then inquire with the cashier if he is familiar with Boris, the man with a blue truck, and the cashier provides them with his address. Meanwhile, on the other side of town, Uncle Jason continues his investigation by visiting the local car insurance office today. He invents a story about accidentally bumping into a blue truck and inquires about its owner. Just as the boss Boris arrives back home, Katie and Sloane have secretly approached him and hurl a collection of tennis balls spiked with nails, causing him serious injuries. With the situation reversed, Boris begs for his life, even offering his money to spare himself. Just at that moment, Uncle Jason arrives and parks in front of Boris's house. Inside the house, Katie and Sloane start interrogating him to learn the identity of the person in the pig mask. When Boris refuses to disclose the information, Katie and Sloane use a makeshift spear they created and insert it into him, leading to his eventual demise. When Uncle Jason finally enters the house, it seems that Katie and Sloane have already departed, and he is met with the sight of Boris in critical condition. Jason then hears the sound of car engines and rushes outside. Katie and Sloane drive away, while Uncle Jason hurries Boris to the hospital. In the next scene, the sheriff tells Uncle Jason that Boris didn't survive. Becoming even more concerned, Uncle Jason attempts to call Katie's phone, but suddenly, he realizes that his disguise is exposed. In response, the sheriff draws his gun. Katie and Sloane arrive at a church, and we discover that the person in the pig mask is, in fact, the town's priest. Sloane enters the church and confronts her assailant. With Katie's assistance, the two best friends defeat their tormentor. As Katie and Sloane drive away, they appear to be content and worry-free. However, when they make a stop and get out of the car, it's revealed that the person in the pig mask, also known as the priest, has been chained behind the truck the entire time. In their last attack, they poured gasoline on him and make him catch fire before driving away. While the two women are doing well, Uncle Jason is now in the sheriff's custody. What's even worse is that the sheriff has caught two new young women. Thankfully, Katie and Sloane have arrived to help. They tie up the sheriff and start playing a dangerous game of Russian roulette with him. It's clear that the two women are a bit unstable, but we can understand why given the circumstances. The sheriff starts apologizing just as Katie delivers a final blow to his head. Afterward, Katie and Sloane release the women and instruct them to release Uncle Jason. Next, Katie and Sloane go to Jed and Lucas' mom's house and decide to use the same type of medicine on her that she used on them a few days ago. They tie her up and bring her to the basement, where Jed is also tied up and unable to speak. Then, they use baseball bats to hit Jed's head while the mother is made to watch. Then, they bring her to Lucas, who is also tied to a chair. Instead of harming him, they untie him and give him a baseball bat, demanding that he hit his own mother. When Lucas refuses, they shoot and kill him. Later on, the two women arrange Lucas's body to make it seem like he took his own life. They intend to blame him for all the killings. The mother, in a state of desperation, offers them money in the hope that they will spare her life. However, instead of sparing her, Katie uses a lawn-mower to gruesomely end the mother's life. In the following scene, Uncle Jason arrives at Katie's house to pick her and Sloane up. It seems like some time has passed. Katie and Sloane are then taken to the airport and eagerly head to New York City.